Brian Warner, who you probably know better as Marilyn Manson, is facing the possibility of criminal charges involving allegations of sexual assault and domestic violence from many years ago. We're talking 2009 to 2011. The LA Sheriff's Office turned over the investigation to the DA's office on Monday, but in a statement to the Associated Press, the DA said his office received only a partial file and more information was needed before the case could be reviewed. I'm Angenette Levy, and you are watching Sidebar here on Law and Crime. Well, our next story, Brian Warner. You might not know that name, but you probably know the name Marilyn Manson. He is the rock star who's 53 years old. He's been famous for decades. He's, got this image out there. Well, he is now facing the possibility of criminal charges involving allegations of domestic violence and sexual assault. These allegations date back to 2009 through 2011. The LA Sheriff's Office, LA County Sheriff's Office, actually turned over its investigation into these allegations to the LA County DA's office earlier this week. Well, now the LA DA's office is saying, a spokesperson is saying in a statement, that this was only a partial file and that more information, more investigation is needed before the DA's office is going to look through the case and determine whether or not any criminal charges should be filed against Brian Warner, aka Marilyn Manson. Joining me to talk about this is Meghann Cuniff with Law&Crime.com. She has written about this development with the case being handed over to the DA's office for Law&Crime.com. Meghann, welcome back to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Meghann, tell us the very latest, because we know that this investigation has been going on for a while. We know that there was a search of Marilyn Manson's home back in November of last year. So that's been many, many months that have passed. We have at least two women who've identified themselves publicly as accusing him of abuse, Evan Rachel Wood, who is his former fiance, and another woman who started a television show. So what is the very latest as far as, the status of this investigation? Because it seemed like it was going on for a while.
It has been. It's been a 19-month investigation, they said. They actually, the Sheriff's Department issued a press release yesterday saying that they had completed it and handed it over to the DA's office. But then the DA's office has come out and said, actually told the Associated Press that they considered it a partial investigation, what they got. So it sounds like they're going to ask for some more investigation to be done on this. They said that they're probably, this is going to take a while to review, but they, said rest assured they take this seriously. And there really has been an unusual focus by the DA on giving updates on this. We don't usually hear about him talking about the need to get an investigation before him, but he did do this recently. So I think it just kind of shows the high profile nature of the case. And then also the DA himself seems to be making more of an effort, especially in the last few months, to kind of publicize his efforts against crime and to kind of push himself as somebody who's bringing crimes, who's bringing criminal charges against criminals, prosecuting people. And that kind of comes after a failed recall attempt against him that said that he was soft on crime, basically.
Right. And I was going to ask you about that. His name is George Gascon. And when he took over, there were a lot of people who were very critical of him, saying that crime was going to run rampant, that he is, as you said, too soft on crime. Let's take a look just really briefly at what he said last week. His office actually put out a video on Instagram, which seems unusual because typically prosecutors don't address ongoing investigations. But he answered a question about this case. So let's take a look at that clip.
The Brian Warner matter is still under investigation by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and has not yet been submitted to our office. Be assured that we are requesting regular updates on the status of this investigation. The District Attorney is committed to investing in trauma-informed care for all victims of sexual assault, abuse, and intimate partner violence. We understand how difficult it may be to come forward as a victim, especially when the case involves this level of notoriety, and are dedicated to treating all victims with the highest level of care and respect. Once we have received the case, it will be carefully evaluated by an experienced prosecutor to determine if it is appropriate to file charges at this time. We're hopeful that the LASD will present the case to us sometime this month.
Meghann, were you surprised as a reporter who's covered things out there in LA to see George Gascon on this video that's obviously edited and put together well, talking about an ongoing criminal investigation that at that point his office had yet to receive?
It was definitely a bit surprising to see really any prosecutor do that. And then especially the kind of message to the sheriff's department that, they'd like this investigation sooner than later. I thought that was unusual. But given who Gascon is and some of the politics surrounding him, it didn't seem all that unusual, especially given just a lot of the press releases and kind of the more publicity he's doing toward his anti-crime efforts recently.
But this is a case, yes, it would be a criminal investigation, obviously. That's what the sheriff's office would investigate. The DA's office would investigate crimes. But at the same time, it's a Me Too case. So, an alleged Me Too case. I should mention, Marilyn Manson has denied all of this and said that, through his lawyers, he didn't do this. He didn't abuse Evan Rachel Wood. He has said that because she is suing him for defamation. So he's suing her for defamation, I should say. So he's denied all of this. He said it's all made up and it's all bogus. So is there a Me Too aspect of this too, given what's been going on with that movement in the recent past?
Absolutely. It has all the hallmarks of that. And I think the DA's office and the media people have to be a little bit sensitive to just how big the case is and its kind of ties to, other high profile incidents and just the kind of attention that it's going to be getting from the media. I think that definitely plays into it. Because like you said, in addition to the defamation lawsuit against Wood, there are also 2 lawsuits in federal court against Marilyn Manson, accusing him of sexual assault by 2 different women. So there's a lot of ongoing cases here that are kind of swirling around.
So given your experience in covering, LA County out there and stuff like that, I mean, how long, and I know I'm asking you to speculate here, but how long do you think that this could take for the sheriff's office to do whatever the DA feels is necessary to get this done and then turn it back over, I guess, to the LA County DA? I mean, are we talking weeks, do you think? Do you think we're talking months?
I think we're probably looking more in the months range, just given the fact that it now looks like the sheriff's department is going to be doing a little bit more on their investigation, and then the review process. You have to imagine that, any case like this would take a lot of prosecutor eyes and a lot of thought into reviewing it, but then just given the high profile nature of it and all the attention that's on it, I think we're looking at least a few month review process. But then, like you said, all we can really do is speculate on that. So
yeah, certainly. And that's obviously what we're doing here. Marilyn Manson is somebody who has an image out there. He's like shock, like I need to shock people, or this is my public persona. But I know I've, heard from some people out there that Marilyn Manson, the rock star and the guy, is different from Brian Warner, the man, the person who is behind the persona. So I hear he's actually kind of like just a homebody and just a guy that's just a normal guy. I mean, have you heard any talk about that out in LA? Do you ever hear anything about him other than what's kind of swirling out in the ether about these allegations?
I haven't picked up too much on that, but I think there is just, kind of skepticism about his denials and his, kind of saying that, he's a homebody when you just, look at, everything that he's done over the decades and his music and that kind of thing. I mean, I think a lot of the allegations that have come up have had some pretty specific details in it, but it's just another one of those Me Too cases that's kind of left up for the courts to sort out.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a hearing coming up in Marilyn Manson's case next week. I should say the Brian Warner versus Evan Rachel Wood defamation case. That is coming up next week. There's been a lot of back and forth in that case. I don't want to go into too much detail. We don't want to mess up the details because it's another one of these things where there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of allegation, or there are many allegations being made on both sides regarding discovery and things like that. So there is a hearing coming up. regarding Marilyn Manson and Evan Rachel Wood next week, where there will be some issues discussed. So this case could take a really long time, the defamation case, to make its way through the courts and actually go to trial. I mean, it could be months to maybe even a year or two.
Absolutely. And this is kind of one of those good cases that kind of brings the public into what really is kind of a standard procedure for all lawsuits. I mean, I imagine the discovery dispute here is going to get a lot of attention, and, as it should, because anyone who's interested in this case would be interested in that. But really, the idea that you would have a lawsuit where there isn't a discovery dispute would be unusual. So, I mean, I think what we're going to see is standard stuff in a lawsuit, but it'll also kind of take a heightened interest just because of who it is and what they're talking about.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there are a lot of people looking at this. They're interested in it. And we'll have to wait and see what happens, as always. Thank you so much, Meghann Cuniff, reporter with Law&Crime.com, for coming on and talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for this edition of Law and Crime Sidebar podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. It is produced by Michael Deininger, Logan Harris, and Sam Goldberg. Bobby Szoke is our YouTube manager. Alyssa Fisher handles our bookings, and Kiara Bronson does our social media. You can find Sidebar on Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, you can watch it on the Law and Crime Trial Network and on the Law and Crime YouTube page. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.